But but no, Lisa, it is good to meet you face to face in a way.
Yeah, thanks.
Uh, yeah.
Exactly, virtually.
Yeah, you may be the furthest person away from myself that I've
Oh,
had on the podcast so far. So,
I
um
love that.
yeah. So I mean,
Yeah,
you're
I am
way up in
quite north.
Canada.
Yeah, I'm really north. I'm about 3.5, 4 hours north of Toronto in a community called Sudbury, Ontario. And so we're considered Northern Ontario, but actually there's a lot more north of us, a lot more.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Well,
we're north, but
Canada's pretty big.
it's pretty big.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. Well, I feel I feel like I've maybe been in Canada this week. I'm in Nashville, and
Okay.
we had the first snow flurries of the season this week. So I think it's been abnormally cold here. Um,
That's
but yeah, so maybe
crazy.
we can share the cold a little bit together.
That's crazy because we have had unusually warm weather this fall and bright days and like sometimes t-shirt weather. It's been very strange. This morning we woke up to frost. But we
Yeah.
haven't even had a snowfall here. My daughter's in Ottawa and my son is in Toronto, and they've both had a big load of snow. So it's for whatever
Wow.
reason, the north is still not snowy. So I don't know. I'm sorry, everyone. We sent our weather to you, but
Yeah, I think it's been a little bit backwards. It's supposed to
yeah,
be back warm, here soon, but we do get the full seasons. It's given us a little tease
yeah.
of maybe what's to come. But no, nonetheless. But Lisa, it's great to meet you and talk about your books. You've written multiple books. You've written a few books actually,
Yeah.
different genres and a couple different things. I'd like to talk about all of them, but specifically, like Water for Weary Souls is the one that we've
Mm,
got so far
right.
on the Books4Guys website, and it's one that I and my wife is actually we're both excited to read
Oh,
because
good.
we love that style of book, like kind of mystery,
Mhm.
dark story to it. And so,
Yeah,
I mean, just to kick it off, I mean, Lisa, talk a little bit about your background and kind of like just how you
right.
became an author in general.
Yeah, well, I've always been a writer, as probably a lot of authors tell you that
Yeah.
we've been writing since we were little, and it just, it's one of those things. I've always been a storyteller. And I studied English at University of Ottawa U, and I ended up going into teaching because,
Nice.
what are you going to do with an English degree? I wasn't going to be a teacher, but that's what happened. And I taught English and creative writing and AP research for many years. But I started writing really seriously in 2012. So I'd been writing and I'd been doing all kinds of things. I always loved it. Avid reader. But then in 2012, I got a phone call from my mom, and she said, somebody wants to write your father's story. And I told them my daughter's going to do that. And I thought,
Yeah.
okay, this is the time. And I knew he
And
had a story to tell, and I had known
yeah.
about it for, since I was young, but I didn't know really the details. So my father was a 16-year-old Finnish merchant marine sailor,
Okay.
and he was in Poland, in which is now Dansk, but it was Gdansk or Danzig at the time, in
Okay.
1944, in September 1944, and his ship of sailors and three other ships, 90 Finnish sailors, were arrested and sent to Stutthof concentration camp in Poland. So
Oh,
at the age of 84, my dad told me his story, and
yeah.
I wrote my first book, which was Surviving Stutthof. So
Yeah.
it was an incredible experience to find out what had really happened for my dad and those sailors. And it was kind of one of those untold stories, right? Like only a few people knew that that had happened, like family members maybe, but it's not
Yeah.
the typical Holocaust survivor story because, we have all kinds of different stories, but um, now I think more stories are coming out from different folks. And in the concentration camp he was in, there were 25 different nationalities. Do you know, like if
Wow.
you were opposed to Nazism, you were you were the enemy. So you were
Yeah.
in the camp. And lots of different languages. So but he was fortunate in the sense that he was with other Finnish sailors and Norwegian policemen who they kind of bonded and tried to take care of each other as best they could.
Yeah. That's incredible, and you have 2 books kind of about that story, right?
Yeah, well, I have, I originally self-published it. It was called The Day Soon Dawns. And then it got picked up by a publisher in 2017. So they just retitled it, new cover. I got some
Uh-huh.
developmental editing done, which was lovely. And that was really great because they were able to spread it a little bit wider afield than I could do. And
Yeah.
but the first historical novel I wrote was inspired by my dad's storytelling because he was telling me about his childhood during the Winter War. So he was in Finland on the western side, and the army came through and they kind of took over the town. And he was telling me about like bombing in the city and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So I was really interested in what people were doing at that time. So I kind of wrote a story that was fictional, but it was based on that time period. Plus, sort of an alternate timeline where there's like the Winter War, 1939, 1940 in Finland and Russia, but then also Northern Ontario. The main character, has come to Canada and she gets early onset Alzheimer's. So she has
Yeah.
a really tough time because, these really vivid memories of the past and some unresolved things have happened. And now she's losing her memory and there's issues of having to take care of her grandchild. So like that story is fictional, but so much was inspired by my dad's telling me about his life
Yeah.
in Finland. And I keep sort of exploring those things because I'm so fascinated by my own heritage and culture that I feel like I know something about now, but at the
Mm.
time I was like, I don't know really anything about this.
Yeah.
So I'm
Well,
learning.
yeah, well, that's, like, extremely unique to be for your father to go through what he did, and then you be able to
Yeah,
learn about that, and you just your passion and
yeah,
interest in reading and writing and being able to tell his
yeah,
story, um,
yeah.
I mean, because really, when I got introduced to you, I was obviously, I looked at your fiction writing first and then kind
Mhm.
of backtracked and saw that story, and I was like,
Yeah,
well, we have to talk about
yeah.
that. That looks extremely interesting
100%.
and fascinating.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the like I always say this that I mean, I've written these 3 books and I have some cozy mysteries on the way and I have other books that I'm, working on. But despite like this book, Surviving Stutthof, about my dad will be always the most important book I've ever written. Like it doesn't matter if I
Yeah,
write 100 books. This is the most important story I have to
yeah,
tell. And
yeah,
it's his story. And like he trusted me to tell it. I was fortunate because I was able to give him every single draft and
yeah,
ask him like, am I representing this right? Is this okay? Is like, and he would rarely change anything, but once in a while he'd tell me like, well, it was more like this, and I'd go and change it. But he
yeah,
was accessible to me all the time. Like I just call him up and I'd be like, "Okay, tell me more about this." Like I don't really get
yeah,
that. And he'd explain it again. And so it was really lovely to have that experience with him. It was we were really close. Like I felt like I was always close with him, but this was such a journey that we took.
yeah,
And one of the things that happened when I was writing that book was at the beginning, he was telling me about his childhood in Finland, this winter war, like how they used to play and all those things. And then he started talking about coming to Canada and working all over Canada and working on smokestacks and traveling and all, his whole life after the war. And I thought, but what happened in between? And
yeah,
he was having a really hard time. And my mom kept saying, "Oh, just be patient, just be patient." And I was. And eventually, one day he sort of opened that death gate and told me what that was like to go through those gates and what was
yeah.
behind them. And it
Wow.
was like so devastating and moving and um terrible. Like he was on 2 death marches. I mean, there's so many multiple times he should not have survived. Of
Yeah,
course, I mean, happy ending, he did survive,
yeah,
but he witnessed so many terrible things. And today being Remembrance Day, it's like even it's really interesting that we're talking about this because it's so
Yep.
personal. Like to me, it's not a thing. Like the World War II isn't something that happened way in the past. This happened to my father. It's
Yeah.
not like a great grandpa parent from years and years ago. Like it feels like yesterday, and
Yeah.
that's something we sometimes forget that these events, like they're doomed to happen again if we're not careful, right? In a different
Yeah.
form, of course, but yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
No,
an important
that
story to tell.
yeah, yeah. No, and I've read other stories about other people, and it's hard for me to read because number one, I can't imagine it. No one in
Yeah,
my family went through it, but then as I was reading
yeah,
it, just like you said, I was like, this was not that long ago that
no,
this stuff
it really
happened.
isn't. Yeah,
And it's
it
very,
really
it
isn't.
just makes it more surreal that we're that
Yeah.
close to that much tragedy that took place.
Yeah, 100%. And, like, the thing is, like, I know that it's difficult for folks to read these terrible stories, but I always think to myself, but also it's important to do that because we didn't have to go through it, right?
Yep.
We did so because we have the freedom, we have we benefited from all the sacrifices that those people went through. um, I think it's kind of a duty to read some of these stories to understand what it's
Yep.
about, because we can so easily slip back into some of those themes of these wars if we're not
Yep.
careful. So I
Yep.
100% agree. And what I did, because I'm a fairly sensitive person, before I started interviewing my dad, I spent about 6 months, maybe even longer, reading every Holocaust survivor story I could find
Yeah.
and reading all kinds of books about the Nazis and concentration camps. And the idea was, well, I felt like I needed to put on armor, like I needed to know every terrible possible thing that could have happened so that when
Yeah.
my dad told me it happened to him, I wouldn't sob in front of him. And I was pretty good. Like I had my laptop and I made my notes as he spoke. And then I would cry on the way home in the car. I just
Yeah.
sob. And then I'd wipe my tears and go in, and my young kids were there. And I have to, like, okay, rally again. So it was really an emotional experience. But again, I'm like, okay, I'm crying because I'm hearing this secondhand, but he lived through it.
Yeah.
Like I have to have the strength to hear it and to
Yeah.
write about it and to talk about it. And so yeah, I think it was really brave of him to finally get to the place where he could talk about it. And then when we did these events together, like we'd go to a book signing or something, it was incredible. He was talking to strangers about what happened.
Yeah.
I'm like, who are you? Like, you couldn't talk to me, your daughter, for months. And now you're like telling all these people about what happened. But something opened up for him. Like, it was
Yeah.
okay to tell his story. And it was
Yeah.
important to tell his story. And people wanted to know. So, I think there was a little bit of therapy with that. Like, I'm not saying
Yeah.
he didn't you don't recover from those things. Like he had night terrors for the rest of his life. And
Yeah.
he, I'm sure he had PTSD, but I think it helps to talk about it and write about it and share with other people. So
Yep.
it was kind of
Yeah.
a blessing in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, and it sounds like him being able to tell you his story, and it made it a little bit easier to have more of those conversations about it as people read the book and asked about it, and it probably brought the guard down a little bit to where he
Yeah.
felt comfortable being able to do that, and it's really cool that, like, as his daughter, you're the one that got to share the story and share the
Yeah.
moment with them
I
as,
know. It's so
that's extremely
special.
unique in itself.
Yeah. Well, I have one more unique element to add to that. So a couple years ago, they decided to do an audiobook. So if anyone likes to
Oh.
listen to their books, we have an audiobook version. And the narrator is my son, so my dad's
Oh,
grandson, Kieran
cool.
Jensen. He is an actor, and he studied at George Brown Theater School, and so he was hired to be the narrator for the book. And so I went to see him record one day, and here's my words about my dad being spoken by my son. It was like, wow, unbelievable.
Yeah,
Like it was such a touching moment.
that is super cool, and that's stuff that'll live
Yeah.
forever. I mean, like, you're writing
Yeah,
his
right?
story, your son's voice
Yeah,
telling the story, like,
yeah,
not to sound morbid,
exactly.
but when you guys are gone, that story lives
Yeah,
on for many,
it's
many
right.
generations, so
That is 100% and that's what we wanted even initially about writing the story was I didn't know enough to be able to tell my children what happened,
Yeah.
And so, and my brothers and I just had little bits and pieces. So like even together, we didn't have the whole story. So that was it. Like we needed to tell the story for our kids and our and grandkids. And now that it's there and I'm so happy that other people found it and it resonated for them or something that happened in their family. Like they didn't have to be finished. Like it's really what happens to human beings in these situations. And
Yeah.
this just happens to be a finished sailor. But yeah, so I feel like it was all meant to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky that he's decided to do it when he did because he did get Alzheimer's and slowly his memory started to go. Although the long-term memory lasted the longest, the short-term memory
Yeah.
was worse. So I think we
Interesting.
kind of worked on it at the right time before it would have been too late. So
Yeah.
I'm very
Yeah.
grateful.
Yeah, well, that's an incredible story, and I will get that book on the Books for Guys
Yeah.
website as well because I
Yeah.
think that is extremely fascinating, and I know a lot of people who listen to this or will listen to this will be very interested in reading
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I'm just I have no thoughts. Like that's just an incredible thing. Again, just for you to be able to tell the story, your son to be able to narrate it now.
Mhm.
Um, just what a cool event.
Yeah.
Not, again, it came
Yeah.
from tragedy, but to kind of bring it all full circle to something
Yes.
positive in the end, is
100%.
extremely cool.
Yeah.
Extremely cool. Um,
Yeah.
but switching gears to
And I was
your
really
latest book.
fortunate. Oh,
No, no, you're good. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah, I was just gonna say the other cool thing that happened was so my dad, came to Canada in 51. So he was born and lived in Finland until then. And we talked about like how can we get it into Finnish, like for
Mhm.
for his relatives who are there. And so I did get a publisher in Finland who translated it and was in Finnish. So he by the time it was published in Finland, he had died. My dad died in 2018. But I just thought, oh, like he would have loved that. Like he would have
Yeah.
loved it. And I know that I have so many family members who were so happy they could read it in Finnish. So,
Yeah.
this you don't know where it's gonna land, right? And just that there's I don't know if he was looking out for us and saying, okay, let's make this happen.
Yeah.
Because it just
Get
happened after he
getting
died about a year later. I'm like, what? So that
yeah.
was cool.
He
But yeah,
he
the new
probably
book is like water
provided
for weary soul. Oh, sorry.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, and again, it's kind of your dad probably did provide a little help there to you at the end,
Yeah.
kind of a wink
I
from
think
him
so.
looking down. Yeah. But yeah,
I
so
love
like
that
water
idea.
for weary souls, moving on to your
Yeah,
fiction writing.
yeah.
Obviously you have again, you've always been a writer and a reader, so you
Mhm.
seem to be a person that has a creative mind, and are able to explore different worlds, with your interests. But talk a little bit about the book and like how you came up with the characters and the story and how you put that
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, so again, this is all stemming from the fact that I have this interest in my own heritage, right? Like I'm Canadian, but I grew up in a really Finnish community, lots of Finnish people. Like until I went to school, I didn't know that everyone didn't speak Finnish. Like whatever, like I didn't understand that. And Sudbury is actually quite multicultural now, but when I was a kid, not as much. But we have a lot of like different immigrant groups, so Italians and Ukrainians and various groups have settled here. But I live in a mining town. So Northern Ontario was first a mining town. We mine nickel and everything, was centered around mining. And my mom grew up in a farming community nearby called Wanop. And that was also very big Finnish farming community. And Sudbury was like the big city when she was young.
Yeah.
And she was born in 33. So she would tell me stories about the Depression. And so I'm like, huh. And then I was reading a book by Varpo Lindstrom who researched Finnish immigrant women through history, like who came to Canada and the different work they had and different like just like how they survived. And I was so interested in these domestic workers, and especially she had a section about the 1930s, and I'm like, wait a minute, she's talking about my hometown. She's talking about the
Yeah.
Great Depression. She's talking about Finnish immigrant women. She's talking about domestics. She's talking about some of the women who opened brothels and boarding
Yeah.
houses and were bootleggers. And I'm like, what? Like,
Yeah.
this is not the stories my mother and dad told me when I was a kid. I don't know any of this. So it kind of
Yeah.
gave me this spark of an idea. And then the other part was I was reading about Karelia in the Soviet Union, as one does. And so Karelia was a Finnish socialist utopian society that was created in the 30s in the Soviet Union. So the
Wow.
idea was that the Soviet Union was like attracting these Finns from North America, like Canada and the States, to go to the Soviet Union to start these communities. Like they wanted people who could work in the lumber of
Mm,
industry and like people who had like really good skills so that they could build up the economy. And like there, you can raise your children in Finnish and we'll have schools in Finnish and you can start this community. And people were like all over it. So,
yeah.
like, I think I've heard various numbers, but I think about 25,000 people from Canada and the US, Finnish
Wow.
Canadians, or some of them were like first generation Finns who came to Canada. Some had been born in Canada. They went to Karelia to start this society. And of course, it doesn't go well. At first, they're all excited because they can create this opportunity, and they have some
Yep.
work. And things weren't great in Canada and the States because of the depression, and so they're very hopeful. But over time, people start to disappear. People start to get arrested. They were sent into gulags.
Mm,
Stalin's purges happened. So like it was really awful. Some people came back to Canada and the States because they're like, no, you can't do
yeah.
this. And others like stayed and had given up their passports and stayed, and it didn't go well. So it was one of those ideas. I love the idea that everyone has a dream of a better life and
Yeah.
they are willing to do what they have to do to get it, but also it doesn't mean it's going to go well. And that
Yeah.
so it's only one character that goes to Corellia, but it's him that um he's kind of the epitome of this idea that everyone has a dream, right? He's so invested in going that he works for it, he saves his money, he gathers tools, he's off he goes, and he leaves his fiance behind saying, I'm going to send for you, I'm going to send you money for you to come. And when the letters start to get darker and darker, she's like, what is happening? And she wants to
Yeah.
go and find out what's going on,
Mm,
and needs to see him. So I love the idea that these Finnish domestic workers, these two girls, have moved from this farming community um, in hopes of a better life in this little mining town,
mm,
and they both become domestic workers. But one sister's body is found in Nolan Creek, and the other sister knows there's no way this was
yeah.
an accident. The police think it's an accident. She says it's not an accident. There's no way my sister would have crossed this Nolan Creek with in the spring thaw when the
Yeah.
ice is unstable. Like I just know my sister, she wouldn't have done that, and she wants to find out what happened to her sister. So there's this mystery embedded in the
Yeah.
story
Yeah.
of Essie trying to find out what happened to her sister. So it was really fun because it was kind of like bringing together all these different aspects of like life in the 30s for different
Yeah.
immigrants, and I have different immigrants from different places in the town, and yeah, just exploring like everyone has just what was trying to survive, just
Yeah.
trying to have a better life, and
Yeah.
making not great choices necessarily. Like
Yeah.
I tried to be really sympathetic to some of the characters, like the madam who runs the brothel and the girls that live there. Like, we can really judge them, but I wanted them to be just human beings who we
Yeah.
felt like sympathetic towards, and they're there, like they're just trying to make a living and trying to survive this situation.
Yeah.
So it was kind of an eye-opening research into it. Just go,
Yeah.
this sounds like a good story.
Yeah. So how long did it take you from start to finish to
Oh my
write
gosh.
and complete it?
Yeah, it's hard. I should someday keep track of these things because what usually happens is I have three projects on the go. I have one that I'm thinking about and sort of planning and jotting notes on. I have one that I'm working on and actively writing, and
Mhm.
one that I'm like either at an end stage, getting close to publishing or pitching or whatever. So I usually have three projects. So while I was working on this one, Sisters Winter War was getting ready to be published. So that
Okay.
was at the end stages there, and I was working on this one. So there's always these overlaps, and I'll have to stop and work on this for a bit, and then I can go back, and then I can work on that for a
Yeah.
bit. I like doing that. So I would say this one probably started. I started writing it in probably 2017, like
Wow.
but also I was really working on Sissy's Winter War more in a focus way then. So this was more like my planning one, and then starting to research, and then eventually when Sissy's was ready to get published, I was really working on writing this one. So it's I would say all historical novels I've written take at least 3 years, but
Yeah.
not in a row, like not focused. I'm like
Yeah.
kind of all over doing different
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and with you, I figured with you, your fiction being historical and having actual things you gotta learn and figure out to make
Yeah.
sure you put it the right way, that's different
Yeah.
than just creating a story and keeping it
Yeah.
flowing, and, like, you're
100%.
yeah, you got a lot of
Yeah.
different things that you're doing instead of
It's
just sitting down and writing.
Yeah, the research is so important, and the thing is I love research and I love history, so I'll go down these deep dives into things that will never end up in the book, but they're so fascinating. So
Yeah.
I take
Yeah.
probably longer than I need to. But you're
Yeah.
right, like when I'm writing cozy mysteries, which I've been doing lately, because there's not as like there's a little bit of research here or there, but it's not really intense. It's so much faster. Like it's just
Yeah.
because you've created this community and you've created these characters and contemporary, and it's like, well, I know what that looks like because, it's
Yeah.
like modern day. So
Yeah.
it just eliminates all those years of research and then you can just focus on writing the story, which is
Yeah.
so fun.
Yeah. Are you a writer that has like you treat this as your job, or you get up and you write all day, or do you have certain moments where you're like, "Hey,
Yeah,
I'm in the morning, my brain is the most creative and I write," or at
yeah,
late at night? Like what's your process
yeah.
look like?
I would love to be the writer who says, "Yes, I get up at this time and I write for this many hours." And I would love to be that person, but I've never been. So when I was a teacher, I had to learn how
Mm.
to write. Oh, sorry, my dog is having a can you hear her? She's having a little da, 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 da.
I'm a big dog
Um
person. I love it.
Yeah, there's probably a dog walking by. She's a little dog, so she's probably like, I'm bigger than I think I am."
Yeah, little dog
But
syndrome.
yeah, I know it's exactly right. So yeah, when I was teaching, I had to find ways to fit it in. So I would write 15 minutes here, 20 minutes here. I'd sit in the car when my kid was to practice, and I'd write in the car. Like I can write anywhere with any noise. I can write like when my daughter was dancing with the music playing. I can write wherever. So I learned how to do that, and so now that I'm actually sort of a full-time creative person. Like I've left my
Yeah,
teaching job. I've been 3 years now working for myself here at home, and writing and book coaching, and I have a podcast as well, and newsletters, and all the things. Um,
yeah,
I still don't do that. Like I thought I would, but I
yeah,
still don't do that. I still have this very strange life, and I kind of like it. So
yeah.
like for today, for instance, I had some client work. And so that was priority one is the client work.
Mhm,
So I have her worked. I have another client tomorrow. I'm working on her stuff.
mhm.
Um, and I have the cozy that I'm working on. I definitely need to get words on the page this week. I did some of that last night.
Yeah,
I'll pick Thursday probably will be like a really good day for that. So every day looks different and I kind of map it out on a Sunday. I look at my week and think, okay, where can I put in these chunks of writing? But they're never at the same time of day. It's not every day.
yeah,
But yet it seems to work. Like I'm able to produce, and I'm pretty fast. Like I would say
yeah,
I'm a fast typist and I can get a first draft out pretty fast. But I can take a long time editing. So
yeah, yeah.
there's that too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super cool though that you can be flexible and balance a lot of
Yeah,
different things and be able
yeah,
to write when you can and not have to be like, I can't do this unless I'm
yeah,
available at this time. Like you're
yeah,
very just flexible and on the
yeah.
go with it, which is awesome. A lot of
I
writers I've talked to are not like that.
No, I know. And I think it's the whole teacher thing because when you're a teacher, like I was a high school teacher, so I was marking a ton and it's a
Yeah.
full-on job for anyone's a teacher, more power to you because it's so intense and emotionally intense that
Yeah.
that those little 20 minutes here and there can feel like a little break. It can just be like,
Yeah.
okay, I can just
Yeah.
dip into the story and then you feel refreshed and you're ready to do something else. And so I think that variety I was used to in teaching. I just moved it because in teaching you have sort of you think you have a scheduled day, but really what happens in that day is all over the place. Like you think
Yeah.
it's going to be period one, period two, period three,
Yeah.
break, whatever, and it's not like that. Like things are thrown at you all the time that you have to
Yeah.
juggle, and so I think I like that energy of what's today gonna look like? And it's
Yeah.
often think I know what it's gonna look like, and it doesn't look like that, and I'm okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Like,
Yeah.
I just go pivot, do something else. And if I really can't get down to the writing, I try to keep doing something creative that will move something forward, whether it's social media or newsletters or something for the podcast or whatever it is. So it's not
Yeah.
that you're not working, it's just that I'm not writing all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it
But you're
seems
still
to work.
knocking yeah, still knocking things off that move the needle and
Yeah,
move the ball down the field to get to what you're
100%.
accomplishing, and no, I totally understand that. My wife was a teacher as well,
Yes,
and I have such a respect after, me going there one day and being my mind was like, "How do you manage all
I know.
this?"
I know, and keep a smile on your face because, like, kids
Yeah.
just you have to leave everything at the door. When you walk into the
Y
classroom,
yes.
you have to be like you're there for them and
Yes.
and it's an emotionally challenging job too, but it taught me a lot, and I love teaching, but I'm also happy not to be teaching anymore, which
Yeah.
isn't quite true. I'm teaching adults, really. I'm teaching writing and things, but,
Yeah.
it's kind of a whole other energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Different, but can be the same.
Yeah, 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 there's a lot of overlap.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Lisa,
Yeah.
one more question for you as I ask everyone this. Eh, for for anyone who what's a book let me start it this way. What's a book or a couple books that have been
Oh,
very impactful to you, either professionally or personally? And then when people ask you for a good book recommendation, what's one
yeah.
that you like to recommend?
Oh my gosh, there's so many because I love every genre.
Yeah.
Okay, there's one book that I keep coming back to because I didn't know who the writer was, and I read it, and it was just stunning. It's called Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. I hope I'm getting that name right. I
Okay.
feel like she's Australian, but it's
Okay.
set in Iceland. And it's about the last hanging that ever happened. And
Oh,
it's, like, really and it's so atmospheric and dark and,
yeah.
like, it's really good. So that
Yeah.
was one that I love, and, I'll just mention one that I think maybe some of your listeners might enjoy, that I picked up recently. The author is Lyndon McIntyre. He used to be a journalist in Canada, and now he writes fiction and nonfiction. And the
Okay.
book I read was called The Wake, and it's nonfiction. It's about sort of two major things. One is a tsunami that happened on the East Coast, in the I want to say 1929. Might be wrong about that, and how it devastated these small
Oh,
communities. And so the aftermath of that was them trying to survive. Um, and then they started mining in their community, so I think that's why I was attracted to it, like, "Oh, a mining community," like, I didn't know anything about Newfoundland, and they started mining, and they had very little, protocols of any kind, like
yeah.
health, and safety and all of those things. That just wasn't happening early in those days. And so the story like tells us all about these different miners who and their families who were affected by the tsunami, but also by the tragedy of the mining and accidents that happened, but also long-term health concerns and how many people died of cancer.
Yeah.
Like this is really sounding terrible, but it's so
No,
beautifully written.
yeah,
Like Lyndon McIntyre is a beautiful writer, so well written and captivating because you're like, I just didn't know anything about it, and it's this whole, huge community that is affected for, decades by
yeah,
those things. So it's so eye-opening. So that was just one that's been very recent that, kinda struck me because I don't think it would be a book that I would normally just pick up, but
yeah,
something about it, like, pulled me towards it, and I think it might have been the fact that I do live in a mining community, so,
yep,
and I just didn't I knew the writer. I knew the writer was gonna be excellent, and I thought,
yeah,
"Okay, I'll give it a try." So, highly
yeah.
recommend it.
Cool. Yeah, I'll add those to my reading list 'cause I haven't read either of those.
Ah,
But I love
so good.
reading. Again, I don't like the tragedy, but I think it's important to read and learn about these
Yeah,
things because we see tragedies all the time, and it seems like
yeah,
you see it for a week and then you kind of forget about it, and those people are living it. And you're not experiencing it, so
Yeah.
you don't think about it, but it's so important to better understand.
Yeah.
Lisa, it absolute pleasure to have you on our podcast, and we will get all your books on the Books for Guys website. We've
Yeah.
got one already. We'll get the others on there. Look forward to spotlighting those and sharing those with those that are interested. But no, I look forward to following your work now that we've met, and your future
Yeah.
books, and can't wait to read and share them all. And eventually we'll have to have another conversation as you have some more books
Yeah.
published.
Would love that. Thanks so much, Chris. This has been really fun.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Lisa. We appreciate it.